back area of the presentation stage where we will be having a discussion on the standards and policy for equipment in the food and beverage industry. So I'd like to introduce you to my panelist, Mr. Anselm Simon. He's a project manager and a highly accomplished project manager, in fact, in Trinidad and Tobago, with a strong background in quality assurance and control, project management, business process re-engineering, process improvement, and entrepreneurship. With over 10 years of experience in these areas, Anselm has demonstrated expertise and a proven track record of success. He holds a master's degree in industrial innovation, entrepreneurship, and management from the prestigious University of Trinidad and Tobago. Additionally, he obtained a bachelor's degree in chemistry with analytical chemistry from the renowned University of the West Indies, showcasing his diverse educational background. Welcome, Anselm Simon. And also with us is Nicola Thomas. Did I get it right? Nicola? Okay, great. And Nicola has been an integral part of Careery's team for over 11 years, specializing in the food and beverage industry for 6 years. With a background in chemical and process engineering, she possesses a wealth of knowledge and expertise. And her unique blend of engineering skills and passion for the food industry enables her to provide valuable support to micro, small, and medium enterprises. Her primary focus lies in assisting these enterprises with various aspects, including product commercialization, process efficiency enhancement, contract processing, equipment recommendations, plant and facility layout, and product and process standardization, among others. So I would also like to welcome Nicola Thomas to our panel, technologists in chemical engineering. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
And generally, overall, Anselm, what are your feelings, your thoughts on the standards and policy for equipment in the food and beverage industry in Trinidad and Tobago, and even the wider region, in fact?
Okay, for me, globally, standards and policies, especially for this type of sector, given the risk to health and safety, is very important, right? General standards in Trinidad and Tobago cover things like hygiene, choosing the types of equipment, and also standardization across the board so that everyone would have an even playing field, especially as it relates to standards for export, right? One of the areas that I'm mostly concerned with is the area as it relates to the sustainability of the equipment that is purchased. You know, every day we see the climate change, every day, you know, the temperature gets hotter. We want to ensure that while securing food safety, we also maintain the environment so that, you know, we are here to actually partake of the food and beverages.
Right, sentiments that were shared earlier by our panel with Marlon Francis and Reshma Advani Rojas.
Yes.
Nicola, your thoughts on it in general?
Well, standards and policies, they typically are there to help you to select the right equipment in the food industry. Its main objective is really to help to mitigate or minimize risks to the general public by ensuring that persons don't get foodborne illnesses or to prevent against contamination. So the main objective of these standards is really to help target the main hazards, which can be biological, chemical, and physical. When we're talking about equipment in the food industry, these types of hazards can come from these equipment, depending on the type of equipment that we select. The standards and policies that we have in place are there to really guide you in the selection process. There are local standards and there are international standards. There are lots of resources available for persons who are interested in really conforming and interested in producing food safe or practicing food safety. These standards are there and easily accessible resources online. We also have our local standard, the TTBS standard, TTS 642, that was published in 2018. This is actually a voluntary standard. Persons can purchase it on the TTBS website for a reasonable fee. And it's a really good standard to have in your collection or in your repertoire because it will allow you to refer to it when it comes to any sort of food-related instances, including equipment.
What I find kind of very interesting is you using the word voluntary in adopting the standards. So is it that all the standards are voluntary, or do we have any mandatory ones set for us if we are providing food for consumption to the public?
So you do have, so as you mentioned, the standard is voluntary. But when you're looking at exporting your products, you do have international standards and guidelines or regulations that you have to adhere to. So locally, we have our regulatory body, which is Chemistry, Food and Drugs. They set guidelines for us when we produce food for sale. Part of that, getting your product to the supermarket, you also have to go through this process with Chemistry, Food and Drugs, where you have to have a food badge. You would also need to have an inspectorate come and visit your facility and certify you to prepare food, give you a certificate of premises. So in order to get a certificate of premises, an inspector has to come in and ensure that the facility that you're utilizing is safe for the production of food. But if it is you don't know what to put in place, then you're not going to get a certificate of free sale, because it means that there are standards available to guide you. What the floors are supposed to be made of, what equipment is utilized for the production of food, what the walls are supposed to be coated with, the ceiling, the type of light fixtures, the drainage, the pest control, all of these things. But if you are unaware because you did not do your research, or you were not informed as to what is required to produce food safely, you're accustomed, let's say you're a cottage industry and you're accustomed making food in your kitchen. And this is what you know. You simply utilize your kitchen and you produce food and you think it's okay to do that for the general public. It changes. A lot of things come into play as we talk about the contamination or the hazards involved. So the standard is there to really help you to reduce that risk, guide you as to what the floor is supposed to be coated with, what type of equipment is needed, how you should treat with the food, what type of light fixtures you should have in a food industry. So this is why, even though it's voluntary, it's critical for you to be informed and to actually apply the standards in your facility.
And I'm feeling like some of those standards I should even be applying at home myself if I'm preparing food for my family, right? Anselm, I saw you in agreement, especially for someone who's into quality control and assurance. I'm really getting into what Nicola was mentioning there. Any thoughts there?
Okay, I concur with her statements. Because of the type of industry and the risks, as the previous panelists would have identified, to health, safety, there's food poisoning issues. You know, you have to pay specific and close attention to the standards as it relates to your choice of equipment, and as you would have mentioned, layout, you know.
So what types of equipment should we be utilizing in the food and beverage industry?
So according to the TTS standard 642, it actually outlines for you some of the requirements in Section 8. Some of these requirements are equipment and utensils should be designed, constructed, and installed in a hygienic and safe manner. What does this mean to the average reader? Right, I will explain this a little bit. Also, part of the requirement is you need to have equipment that is suitable for use. You need to have resistant or materials that can withstand repeated cleaning and sanitation. The material itself cannot be reactive with cleaning chemicals or disintegrate or create any sort of chemical contamination. These are things that I'm quoting from the standard or summarized from the standard. Resistant to damage or harm from the food environment. Made of food-grade materials. The seams and welds should be smooth. The equipment used for heating or chilling, the temperature should be maintained or controlled or have the ability to be controlled. Any sort of utilities utilize for the equipment, whether it's steam, air, or water, does not pose a risk to the food themselves, right? This is the requirements of the standard, and this is helpful because when you're selecting equipment, you want to be able to, in order to meet the standard, there are some things that you want to look at, some key factors. You want to look at the material of construction. The most common material of construction in the food industry is stainless steel. You have different grades of stainless steel. You have 4-1, you have 316. But stainless steel is not the only food grade material. There are other materials as well. You have food grade plastic, you have food grade rubber, silicones, and there are others. But stainless steel is common, and it's common for a purpose. Stainless steel has certain characteristics, or food grade material, I should say, have certain characteristics. What are these characteristics? It's able to withstand repeated cleaning. It's not porous. Material that is porous, that impacts the equipment or is a food contact surface, means that it allows food residue to be lodged in the material, or it could become a home for microorganisms to grow and proliferate. So you want to choose types of material that are meeting the characteristic. It's non-reactive, it's non-toxic, it's chemical resistant, it's corrosion resistant. The material itself will not leach into your food. We're talking about it doesn't react with the food environment. What does this mean? If you're making a pepper sauce, but you're not using the right equipment, or the equipment that you're using is not made of the right materials, you can actually have that acidic environment react with the food material and leach into your food. So you want to, in selecting your equipment, go for certain recommendations. Food grade materials, possessing the characteristics that we just discussed. You want to look at fit for use. Purchasing a piece of equipment, was this equipment designed by the manufacturer for the purpose that you are intending to use it for? If it is, your process is, let's say, mince meat. You wouldn't buy a wood chipper to produce mince meat.
True.
Why is that? Because a wood chipper was not made of food grade material. It may not be able to be disassembled completely for cleaning and sanitation. It may not be able to even clean with certain chemicals. It would be harmful for your food. So the standards are there guiding you to say, what do I need when I am selecting my equipment? What do I need when I am thinking about expanding my business and starting to sell my product to the public? So it's very critical to be informed as to what the standards are saying, and the resources are available for you as well.
And while, I'm saying why Nicola seems that the standards have everything outlined and covered, I'm wondering, especially with your expertise, Anselm, when it comes to innovation and technology, because we've been talking technology over the last few discussions, does that play any role in setting our standards and policy for food safety?
Certainly, and to a great extent, it's almost like the stepchild of the standards. But we are getting there, especially in Trinidad and Tobago. I should have mentioned the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards would have put out additional standards specifically for the refrigeration and air conditioning sector, and that accommodates the food storage aspect.
Okay.
Right? And in that area, we look to improve the energy efficiency of the equipment being utilized for food and beverage. If we go back to the beginning of the value chain, right, with the farms produce the most amount of carbon emissions. But second in line is actual food storage and preservation. That's where refrigeration and air conditioning comes in, right? 30% of the carbon emissions globally come from that segment. And there are many ways in which you could reduce our carbon footprint, improve the energy efficiency of the technology that we introduce, right? Similar to the food standards, Nicola would have mentioned the equipment standards developed by the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards, TTS 57 and 59, are voluntary. But through one of the projects that I'm working on currently, we are hoping to transition that to a mandatory standard, because essentially we want a situation in Trinidad and Tobago where the equipment meets a certain energy performance standard, meaning that's very energy efficient, and it doesn't utilize refrigerants that harm the environment. Currently, the National Ozone Unit would have phased out certain chemicals and in the process of phasing out others. The initial chemicals used was CFCs and 8 CFCs. Those would have harmed the ozone layer, and their replacement, unfortunately, would have contributed to global warming. So through our agreements with the Montreal Protocol, which is an international agreement, we are moving towards the elimination of all those chemicals and hopefully to replace them with natural refrigerants like carbon dioxide, ammonia, and more so hydrocarbons, right? And we hope that with the implementation of these types of technology, it improves the efficiency of operations for food producers and manufacturers. It also reduces the effect on the environment and also helps with the sustainability of food production overall, right? Outside of direct cooling equipment, there's also add-ons to cooling equipment that you could use within your food manufacturing process. Most food manufacturing processes utilize heat for either sanitation or preservation activities like pasteurization, right? You could add on a piece of equipment called a heat pump to your AC or your refrigeration system, right? The essential operation of a refrigeration system is to remove heat from an area and expel it outside, right? With a heat pump, you'd be able to capture that heat instead of just expelling it to the environment and reuse it within your systems to heat things like water, right? Bringing down your carbon emissions and also making your entire system for food production more efficient, right? Making food production in its entirety more sustainable.
Now, is this something that you're talking about that is in collaboration with Kariri to set for the standards and policies for the industry?
Yes, well, Kariri would have been one of the partners in development of the standards, so they would have had a member sit on the committee. So they are one of the innovators within Trinidad and Tobago. So they are everywhere, right? And we really appreciate their assistance, especially with that standard.
And as we come to almost a close, I don't know your final thoughts when it comes to standards and policy for equipment in the food and beverage industry. Nicola, we could start with you.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
If there are any things that you would like to summarize when it comes to this discussion.
Oh, I would just like to say that if we consider certain aspects before we purchase equipment, it will really save us the frustration and any problems that we get when we purchase equipment. Some key factors are, as mentioned, the material of construction, whether the equipment is fit for use, whether the equipment comes with a comprehensive manual or aftermarket support. Oftentimes you have persons, and I mean rightly so, you want to save a buck. Instead of purchasing a US brand equipment or German made equipment, they would resort to Alibaba or IndiaMart or one of these online stores, identifying a piece of equipment that may be functional for their purposes. But oftentimes we have seen, and in my line of work, we have seen that persons would invest their monies, purchase equipment, and it didn't come with these things. It didn't come with support. It didn't come with manuals in English, or maybe the manuals came with 2 lines. There's no way for them to understand what utilities are required for the equipment, how to clean the equipment. Cleaning is very important in the food industry when it comes to equipment, because you have to be able to completely disassemble food contact surfaces and clean and sanitize the equipment. If you don't have the instructions available as to how to use, how to clean, how to maintain the equipment, or even if it is you have part replacements, in the manuals you want to have part numbers so that you can call around, you can go back to the manufacturer. When you have to switch out a part, you can simply quote the numbers available, or you can source a person locally who would assist you in maintenance and support of commissioning the equipment. Oftentimes we find that SMEs make that investment unknowing, unable to do proper equipment selection, and we would visit them and they would have their equipment still in a box, very neatly packed, and they're doing things by hand because they made the investment, but they can't do anything with it. So really bearing in mind aftermarket support, the material the equipment was made of, the fact that equipment could be disassembled for cleaning and maintenance, and there's no dead spaces or no difficult to reach spaces, manuals, and all of these things will really help you to minimize your risks to your food product and will help you to be in conformance with the standards and policies available.
Thank you very much, Nicola. Anselm?
Okay. Well, I concur with all Nicola's statements. We just have to understand that standards and policies are there for a reason. On one hand, to safeguard the public, and also to put things in place to ensure the competitiveness of the sector. Right? As we roll out new standards, it's on the side of the regulators and also the users within the sector to ensure that they are up to date with the information as it relates to the type of instrumentation, the type of equipment, the best practices used in their sector. And this could only further advance the sector. And one important element is sensitization and knowledge management, getting the word out there. Nicola would have mentioned, things like, they didn't know that they should have not chosen this type of equipment. We should increase the types of drives that we have locally and also regionally, to improve awareness of the different types of technologies that could be utilized, the benefits of these types of technology, either to your business model, but also to the environment.
It seems to all boil down to education and support from one another. Thank you very much, Mr. Anselm Simon, Project Manager, and Nicola Thomas, Technologist in Chemical Engineering, joining us as we discuss standards and policy for equipment in the food and beverage industry here at the Caribbean Food and Beverage Event 2023 at the Center of Excellence.